Joining us now to talk more is CEO, chronicler, and associate, Akin Fatunke. It's nice to have you join us in the studio right now.
Good morning.
Good morning, Veronica.
Good morning.
Veronica, Mike.
Yes.
How you doing?
Very fine. All right, now, before we go into these conditions, I'd like you to talk to us about what you have noticed so far. One of the reasons that the border was closed was to see, apart from ensuring that smuggling in and out stops, another issue was to boost local production of things. I wonder how much gains Nigeria can now beat her chest to say we have gained so far from the border closure over the period of time.
Could be argued one step forward, perhaps 2 steps backwards.
Well,
if you look at it from the perspective of macro and microeconomics, yes, it's easy for you to say 34 rice mills in Kano and environ. They've been resuscitated. Youth are getting into the agric value chain. Quite a number of people will also argue that where is the rice? And the fact that we do not have the capacity, so to speak, we've shown that to the whole world, we don't have the capacity to be able to man the borders the way they should be manned. Partial land closure, what about the gaping sea, maritime? And you know, people who are smart at doing the wrong things will always find a way around getting, going the other way. So whatever it is that you may think you are gaining on the streets, you lose in the roundabout. 3 months after the ban, we started seeing the complete opposite of what we should be seeing. Imported products found their way, and they became much more expensive. SMEs who are operating within the border countries suffered tremendous business. Then at the end of the day, you ask yourself, what really have you gained? My prescription, simple. I don't know if you have heard about Professor Ricardo Hoffman, the Harvard professor of developmental economics, looks more at situations where we should be taking more strategic approach to the whole issue of border closure so that we don't run foul of multilateral ECOWAS treaty thing, the ACTFTA that we have just signed, and within 3 months of that signing, we are closing our borders. So like I said, little gains, but much more gains can come if we are competitive. And that competitiveness is what we should be looking at.
But the government thinks otherwise. The president in his statement was saying that we have been able to save so much money and also check the smuggling of weapons, and inflow of weapons, and as well as check smuggling. From the look of things, haven't we made gains there in that aspect?
Again, those gains are intricate, minuscule compared to the broader picture. Yeah, Mr. President could be right. The jury, unfortunately, is out. When you talk about small weapons proliferation, despite the closure, we are still having attacks inward. So I think it goes beyond the issue of smuggling of small arms. How do small arms still get here? Situations where we still have, despite Operation SWIFT that does border control, a lot of these things are still done manual until we apply technology, because whatever it is that you find and human beings get into, not just on the issue of border closure, any other thing that you have human intervention, you always have collaborations in the backward integrative perspective. It will still not go. Yes, I agree. Even smuggling of petroleum products, which I understand has reduced by 30%, but it could be better.
All right. Let's leave it here for now. The conversation will certainly continue. Thank you very much, Akin Fatunke, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you.
Right.
Joining us to talk more on this is CEO, Chronicler and Associates, Akin Fatunke. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
It's a pleasure, Bernard.
You're welcome.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah.
Now, what Nigeria is seeking is that countries, especially African countries, its neighboring countries, play by the rules as it demands, especially looking at the contracts or those pacts that have been signed, especially the AFCTA or the treaties, ECOWAS and all of that. But one is wondering, why is this so difficult, or why is it so difficult for countries to adhere or play by the rules, especially when it comes to Nigeria?
Because of strategic interests, and there are, Veronica, I have to believe this, that there are new colonial forces that are not necessarily desirous of the sovereignty of Nigeria. Yes, we have the market, we have the population, and we have the resources. We have not applied ourselves very well to our resources, and so that's the reason why we are down. But if all this change and we have a leadership that is focused and with vision, Nigeria has been predicted to be a world power. So the ACTFA that you mentioned, you notice that the countries that surround us on the landlocked borders, many of them are francophone. And you know the ongoing debates between the francophone and the anglophone, which one should take an ascendancy. We saw some of those play out even in the ACTFA when they said Nigeria had not gotten their acts together, and that the headquarters should be in Ghana, and we even fought that we should have some kind of say. And the forces outside that geopolitics are looking at it and saying, hey, Nigeria, okay, anything Nigeria. During the Biafran War, we had quite a split. Some Anglophones went on one side, and then the English-speaking went on the other side. It is for those strategic reasons that it's difficult. For crying out loud, what is the difficulty in observing the rule of origin? The rule of origin, which clearly states that if you are going to be bringing anything into Nigeria, okay, and if it is not 30% value add by that country that is in ECOWAS, then it does not qualify for the kind of tariffs that we have put. So Nigeria is now being hit on both sides, so to speak. Why would a fellow African country not want to comply? It beats me. So you now decide that because we have the market, Nigeria should now just be a dumping ground of sorts. What we need to do, basically, is now to do what I would like to describe as sovereign strategic meltdown.
How do you mean?
Truth be told.
The word sovereign is always very...
Oh, yes. Truth be told, we have not done our work well. We are not competitive. We have a port that is 13 meters dry. And our neighboring countries have looked at that and gone to get ports where modern ships can go berth. And you expect 17 meters kind of draft. We have not done all that. These are some of the things we should have done during our first, second, and third development plans. Okay, agreed, we have not done that. We are not competitive. And we have now opened ourselves, so to speak, to ACTFA, ECOWAS Treaty. But those rules of engagement should clearly be followed, including proliferation of people crossing the borders. Many people come into Nigeria without an imprint of we knowing where they are. So if the government is now talking about security issues, yeah, they may have issues with security, but we have really not looked at our economy to be wholesome, strategic alliance, even if these folks are going to be transporting this to Nigeria. What stops Nigeria from taking strategic interest, okay, in who owns some of those ports so that we can buy into it, and then we can begin to now then shape policies. I want to believe that the tripartite agreement that we are putting together, I know Benin, okay? I know Chad, they are beginning to now do legislation to try and comply. But how do you monitor those compliance? How do you ensure that they do what is right? This is the point that I think our government should put the foot down and say, if this is not done on the issue of country of origin, on the agreement that has been signed on ECOWAS, that clearly states we should do inter-ECOWAS business. It must be done at arm's length, and if you are not going to comply, hey, I'm afraid, okay? It will hurt us, it will hurt ACTFA.
If one looks into the kernel and the substance of some of the conditions Nigeria put forward. For instance, let me read one of this one that says that one of the conditions says any import coming from outside an ECOWAS region and imported into an ECOWAS member state must maintain its original packaging. They must be escorted from the port directly to the designated entry point in the Nigerian border, presented to the Nigerian customs with their original packaging. Compromises would not be tolerated. This is one of the conditions Nigeria put forward when it comes to goods coming from outside of the ECOWAS. If you look at all of these, is that not Nigeria putting its foot down?
Well, not necessarily Nigeria putting its foot down.
Okay.
The ECOWAS community putting their foot down. This is the rule of engagement. What we just read just now is the observance of the rule of origin. Because the essence is that if that good or service is not packaged within the sub-region, 30% value, then it does not qualify. Then we should be able to apply the correct tariffs. If you say, Mike, rightly, that is the rule. I mean, quite a number of people see rules and they know how to circumvent. So you've got to be able to do something much more than that, which is, again, the import substitution attempt that Nigeria tried to adopt, including the borders. But we are saying that is still not wholesome. We need to apply technology. The issue that the immigration, the customs, and in addition to what you have read, that in the border countries to Nigeria, all the warehouses that have been put should be taken off.
Exactly.
Smuggling that we are talking about, that some petrol stations should not be cited, at least at our own end, again, So it is the rule of observance. Do we have the discipline? Okay. And it's been shown that this closure has really not helped us in the way we expect that it will help.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it here for now. Akin Fatunke will certainly go ahead with this discussion as time goes on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, joining us to talk more on this is CEO, Chronicler and Associates, Akin Fatunke. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Hi, Mike.
Thank you.
There's been concerns because of this closure 6 months down the line, and we're still having the discussions. And ECOWAS also has raised its concerns. But as a body, speaking about ECOWAS, has it done enough to pressure countries to ensure that they stick to the terms in the treaties they sign?
I'm afraid not. From what I see and from what I read, I think the legislation by the individual countries, Benin, for instance, Niger, to ensure that the protocols are set for free trade flow has not really been enforced. Okay, we expect countries at least to obey and the rules that have been set. That has not happened, 1, 2. Truth of the matter is that the imports into Benin Republic, 80% of the imports into Benin Republic ends up in the Nigerian market as a dump ground. So how is that showing that we are each other's brother's keeper? So I think...
Does that mean there is insincerity somewhere that has to be dealt with if we really need to make move ahead with this arrangement that we're talking about?
Veronica, you are hitting it on the head. Of course, it's not the first time, it's not the second time Nigeria has been making this kind of complaints about our neighbors. Well, I dare say, yes, it might be expedient to show the muzzle a bit. It's not the first time. Back in 1882, I think the U.S. promulgated the Chinese, what they call Chinese, an act against the Chinese in such a way that it became kind of discriminatory because they felt, again, at that time, 1882, the Chinese were flooding in, even though at the end of the day, it hurt the Chinese, the American and other nationals in America at that time. Okay, in 1885, the Canadians also enacted what they call Chinese Amendment Act. Again, it didn't help. Nigeria will not necessarily, I dare say, will not necessarily want to go that route. But hey, we are hurting. And what Nigeria is saying is that if you do not respect the protocols, in 1995, we were part of the World Trade Organization. We were part of the formation of the ECOWAS about 45 years ago. We've been big brothers. Not only are we helping, okay, to provide, basic help in infrastructures, in, sending electricity and selling electricity, even when we are hurting, just to make sure that we try and integrate, the African regional trade. But if that is not helping, we have no choice but to now do what we have done. I am happy, it's just 6 months plus. I think it's time to now just unlock that and begin to look at Nigeria's industrialization and begin to look at the competitiveness of the African region, begin to look at the tariff regime, pay more attention to the HS codes, because we can fight this with tariff that is going to protect local industries, not necessarily try to insulate them. And then at the end of the day, give tax holidays, tax incentives to help our competitiveness.
All right, talking about local production or local producers or indigenous manufacturers and all of that, the border was closed partly for their advantage, at least it was by the books, even if it's real or not. But how much of that are they taking advantage of? At least I'm talking about the local producers, local manufacturers. How much are they doing to take advantage of this window? It
comes first, chicken or egg.
Okay.
They cannot take advantage of whatever local windows or what is now turning, if it goes beyond here, to be a misadventure. Okay? Because the enabling environment is just not right. President Muhammadu Buhari clearly stated that we are yet to see a comprehensive industrial policy for Nigeria, whether it's motor manufacturing, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's the SME, in such a way and manner that will make us competitive. So people are doing things in bits and pieces. Well, that is now becoming a thing of the past, but we must look at it much more strategically. I mean, the pause that we have, the draft is 13 meters. Modern ships cannot come in there unless we do lightering. Makes a lot of inefficiency. We must take strategic interest in some of those ports outside the country.
Outside the country.
Yes.
Absolutely. Akin Fatunke, thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Veronica.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Mike.
Thank you.